"You're my employee, not my mother," my daughter said as she took control of my income. One afternoon, I quietly handed my only sandwich to a beggar at the door. He caught my wrist, tore off his wig, and revealed himself to be a multi-millionaire. He looked me in the eyes and said 3 words that changed everything. "I'm glad you're here. Follow my story to the end and comment which city you're watching from so I can see how far it travels. My name is Rosalind, and at 65 I feel like a ghost in my own life. The alarm by my narrow bed goes off at 5:30 every morning, just as it has for the last 5 years. Not because I chose that time, but because that's when Fallon expects her breakfast. I push myself out of the small guest bed in what used to be the servants' quarters, back when this house had real staff and not just worn-out mothers. The hardwood floor is icy under my bare feet as I shuffle into the tiny attached bathroom. The woman in the mirror is a stranger. My gray hair, once thick and styled every week at Martha's downtown salon, now hangs flat, pulled into a practical ponytail. The lines around my eyes are deeper, and they weren't carved by age alone. They were etched by swallowed words, bitten tongues, and the daily effort of making myself smaller until I almost vanished. I put on my usual uniform, the same faded blue cotton dress that's good for scrubbing floors, and the worn apron Thomas gave me as a joke on our 20th anniversary. "For the best cook in Connecticut," the card had said. I'd laughed back then and swatted him with it. Now it feels less like a gift and more like a collar. The mansion is silent as I head downstairs, my slippers whispering over the marble floors I'll spend the next hour polishing to Fallon's standards. The kitchen is huge, granite counters, gleaming stainless steel appliances that cost more than most people earn in a year. I know, because I remember when Fallon picked them out, charging it all to the card connected to my Social Security and Thomas's life insurance. I start with the coffee. Fallon likes it strong, with exactly 2 tablespoons of cream and 1 packet of the pricey sweetener she orders online. While it brews, I make her breakfast. 2 eggs over easy, whites set but not rubbery. 3 strips of bacon, just crisp. 1 slice of whole grain toast with butter spread all the way to the corners. Everything has to be just right. I learned that in my first week here when she sent back the entire plate because the eggs were too runny. I had to start over while she stood behind me, sighing and lecturing about how some people never pay attention to details. As the eggs hiss quietly in the pan, I catch my reflection in the dark glass of the kitchen window. The woman looking back at me seems tired and worn down. When did I stop meeting people's eyes and start staring at the floor instead? When did my shoulders begin to round forward, like I was trying to occupy as little space as possible? Upstairs, I hear her moving around. Fallon's morning routine is as rigid as mine. Shower, blow-dry, 30 minutes of careful makeup, then choosing an outfit from a walk-in closet bigger than my entire room. She works from home now, some kind of consulting that seems to involve endless phone calls and very little real work. I'm plating her breakfast when I hear her heels on the stairs. She appears in the doorway at exactly 7 o'clock, wearing a cream blouse and perfectly tailored pants that cost more than I used to spend on a month of groceries. Her blonde hair is flawlessly styled, her makeup immaculate. At 43, she's beautiful in that polished, distant way that money can buy. "Good morning," I say quietly, setting her plate on the kitchen island where she always eats while scrolling through her phone. She doesn't look up. The coffee smells weak. I glance at the machine, knowing I made it exactly the way she likes it, the same way I've made it every day for 5 years. "I can make a fresh pot." "No, it's fine." She cuts into her eggs with more force than necessary. "I just don't understand why you can't remember something so simple." I turn to the sink and start washing the pan. The hot water burns my hands, but it's nothing compared to the sting of her words. This is how our mornings always start. Her displeasure, my apologies for things that don't really require an apology. "Oh, before I forget," she says, still staring at her phone. "I transferred your allowance to the household account this morning. The utilities were higher than expected last month." My allowance, that's what she calls the $200 she lets me keep from my own Social Security check. The rest, plus the interest from Thomas's life insurance, goes toward household expenses. The mortgage on this house I never chose. The property taxes on land that isn't mine. The upkeep on a pool I'm not allowed to swim in because I might track dirt on the deck. Of course, I say, because what else can I say? Where would I go with no money and no car? She made sure of that early on, gently insisting I was too old to drive after I scraped the side mirror of her BMW backing out of the garage. When she finishes eating, she carries her plate to the counter beside me instead of the dishwasher 3 steps away. I have a conference call at 9, so try to keep it down while you're cleaning. And can you pick up my dry cleaning this afternoon? The blue dress needs to be ready for dinner tonight. Of course. Good. She pauses in the doorway. Oh, and Mother, try to do something about your appearance today. Mrs. Henderson next door mentioned that the help should look more presentable. The help? That's what I am now, the help in my own daughter's house wearing my dead husband's anniversary gift like a maid's uniform. I watch her leave, her heels clicking back up the stairs to her home office, and something inside my chest gives way. It doesn't shatter, I'm not sure there's enough of me left for that, just another tiny crack in the crumbling foundation of who I used to be. I finish the dishes and start my daily ritual of making this house flawless for a daughter who sees dust where there is none and finds flaws in near perfection. I vacuum the living room, dust every surface, scrub bathrooms that are already spotless. I move through the house like a machine, my body going through the motions while my mind drifts somewhere else, somewhere safer. By lunchtime, I'm drained. Not from the physical work, but from the constant effort of staying invisible, of anticipating needs before they're voiced, of choking back every instinct to defend myself. I make myself a peanut butter sandwich, the same lunch I've eaten every day for months because it's cheap and doesn't touch Fallon's precious grocery budget. I eat standing at the kitchen sink, staring out at the garden Thomas and I used to tend together behind our little house across town. The house Fallon sold for my own good after he died, because it was too much for someone my age to maintain. The money from that sale became the down payment on this mansion. An investment in our family's future, she said. I never saw a cent of it. As I chew my sandwich, I think about Thomas. How he used to make me laugh until my sides ached. How he'd spin me around our tiny kitchen while dinner simmered on the stove. How he'd call me beautiful when I was dusted in flour and my hair was sticking out everywhere. He would hate what I've become. He would hate seeing me reduced to this, a faint outline of the woman he married, the woman who raised his daughter with love and sacrifice, only to have that love turned into a weapon against her. But Thomas is gone, and I am here, and this is my reality. I finish eating and wrap the crusts in a napkin. I'll save them for later, for dinner, because one sandwich is all I allow myself in a day. I've learned how to live with less, to want less, to need less, until I've nearly convinced myself that I am less. The afternoon stretches before me like all the others. More cleaning, more unseen labor, more words swallowed before they can become resistance. I pick up the laundry basket and climb the stairs, each step feeling heavier than the last. I'd become a ghost in my own story, watching life swirl around me while I stood at the edges, never invited to step inside. Worst of all, I had started to believe I deserved it. The knock on the front door comes just as I'm folding Fallon's expensive lingerie. Each delicate piece costs more than I used to spend on a week's worth of groceries. The knock is soft and uncertain, barely audible over the hum of the washing machine in the basement. I set down the silk camisole I've been handling like glass and head downstairs. Through the frosted glass panels beside the heavy oak door, I can make out the outline of someone hunched against the November cold, probably a salesperson, or one of those religious groups that go door to door on weekday afternoons. When I open the door, my breath catches. The man on our immaculate marble steps looks like he hasn't had a proper meal in weeks. His clothes are layers of mismatched fabric, held together more by hope than by thread. His hair is long and unkempt, shoved under a knitted cap that's seen better decades. But it's his eyes that stop me. They're clear, sharp, and filled with a quiet desperation I recognize too well. "I'm sorry to bother you, ma'am," he says, his voice worn but respectful. "I haven't eaten in 2 days. I'm not asking for money, just maybe some food. if you have anything to spare. My heart tightens. I know what it is to be hungry, to count each bite, to stretch a single sandwich across an entire day. Behind me, I can hear Fallon's voice drifting from her office upstairs, coded in that syrupy tone she uses with clients. "Wait here," I tell him, closing the door gently. I hurry to the kitchen and scan the room, mind racing. There's plenty of food in the fridge, but none of it is truly mine. The expensive cheeses, the organic vegetables, the imported crackers, all bought with my money yet mentally assigned to Fallon alone. I know better than to touch any of it without permission. Then I remember my sandwich. I made it this morning for lunch. The same peanut butter and jelly I have every day. It's wrapped in wax paper in the refrigerator, right next to Fallon's leftover Thai takeout that cost $43. My sandwich cost maybe 75 cents to make, but it's all I have. I take it from the fridge, my hands trembling. Giving it away means I won't eat again until tomorrow. But when I picture the man's hollow cheeks and the look in his eyes, I know I can't keep it. I'm unwrapping the sandwich when I hear footsteps on the stairs. Fallon appears in the kitchen doorway, phone pressed to her ear. She stops cold when she sees what I'm doing. "Let me call you back," she says into the phone, hanging up with a sharp tap. "What are you doing?" "There's a homeless man at the door," I say, holding up the sandwich. "He's hungry." Her face hardens. "And you thought you'd just give away our food?" "It's my sandwich," I answer quietly. "Made with bread I bought, peanut butter I bought, jelly I bought." She steps closer, her voice rising. "And you want to give it to some stranger who's probably just looking for an easy handout?" I glance toward the front door, knowing the man can likely hear every word. "He said he hasn't eaten in 2 days. And that's our problem, how?" Fallon snatches the sandwich from my hands. "You're so naive, Mother. People like him see a house like this and think they've hit the jackpot." She unwraps the sandwich and takes a slow, 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 slow. She unwraps the sandwich and takes a slow, deliberate bite. "Besides, you need to learn to think before you act. We have a reputation in this neighborhood." I watch her eat my only meal of the day, each bite a reminder of how little control I have left. "He looked so hungry," I whisper. "That's called acting, Mother. It's what these people do." She finishes half the sandwich and throws the rest into the garbage disposal. "Tell him we don't give handouts. Close the door. And next time, don't answer it at all. That's what we have a security system for." Then she turns and leaves me standing in the kitchen with empty hands and an even emptier heart. I walk back to the front door slowly, dreading what comes next. When I open it, the man is still there, but he's stepped back from the doorway, as if he heard everything and doesn't want to cause more trouble. "I'm sorry," I begin, but he raises a worn hand. "I heard," he says quietly. "It's okay. I understand." But when I look at his face, I don't think he understands at all. There's a deeper sadness in his eyes now, something heavier than hunger. He studies me with an intensity that makes me shift where I stand, like he's seeing something in me that I don't even realize I'm showing. "I wish I could help," I whisper, glancing back toward the kitchen where Fallon is probably listening. "You already did," he says. I don't know what he means. He turns to leave, but something inside me lurches. "Wait," I call after him. I don't know why, only that I can't watch him walk away empty-handed. I reach into my apron pocket and pull out the small packet of crackers I keep there for emergencies, just a sleeve of saltines I saved from a restaurant weeks ago, but it's something. "Here," I say, pressing them into his hands. It's not much, but... When our hands touch, I'm startled. His skin is soft. Not the rough, calloused hands of someone who's been on the streets for long. "Thank you," he murmurs, voice thick with emotion. "You don't know what this means." He walks down the circular driveway with a steady, purposeful stride, not the shuffle I expected. At the street, he turns back and looks directly at me. Even from that distance, the intensity of his gaze presses into me, almost like he's memorizing my face. I close the door and lean against it, my heart pounding for reasons I can't name. "I hope you're satisfied," Fallon says behind me. I jump. She's appeared silently, arms crossed. "You just encouraged a vagrant to think of this house as an easy target." "I gave him crackers." "You gave him hope," she snaps. "And hope makes people dangerous. They start thinking they deserve things they haven't earned." I turn to face her. For a moment, something sparks inside me, something that feels dangerously like anger. "What have I done to deserve being spoken to like this?" She freezes, surprised that I've dared to challenge her. For a split second, I see a flicker of uncertainty in her eyes. A chance, maybe, for her to soften, to remember I'm her mother. Instead, she laughs. A cold, sharp-edged sound. "You want to know what you've done?" she says, stepping closer. "You've done nothing. That's the point. You've never accomplished anything on your own. Dad carried you for 30 years, and now I'm carrying you." I flinch as if struck. "You don't get to play Lady Bountiful with other people's resources," she continues, "when you've never earned a penny of your own." Each word lands like a physical blow. I try to speak, to remind her of the jobs I worked, the bills I paid, the sacrifices Thomas and I made so she could get the education and life she takes for granted, but the words dissolve on my tongue. What's the use? She's rewritten our past so thoroughly that my truth now feels like a lie, even to me. "I just thought," I manage. "That's your problem," she snaps. "You think too much about other people and not enough about reality. Reality is that you live here because I allow it. Reality is that you eat the food I provide, wear the clothes I buy, sleep under a roof I pay for. Reality is that giving away what isn't yours makes you a thief, not a saint." Her words echo in the marble foyer long after she storms upstairs. I stand there, absorbing the impact, feeling smaller than ever. My thoughts drift to the homeless man, probably walking miles now, searching for another door, another chance at kindness. I think about the way he thanked me, the strange sorrow in his eyes, the careful way he kept his distance so as not to cause trouble. Mostly I hear Fallon's voice again and again. "You've never earned anything, never accomplished anything. You're a burden." As I climb the stairs to continue cleaning, I wonder if she's right. Maybe I really am just a useless old woman who should be grateful for the scraps of dignity she allows me. But then I remember his eyes, the way he looked at me, like he saw me, like there was something worth seeing. Recognition. That's what it was. Recognition I couldn't explain. And I had no idea that encounter would upend everything I thought was already set in stone. 3 days pass before I see him again. 3 days of Fallon's increasingly sharp comments about my bleeding heart and terrible judgment. 3 days of replaying that moment at the door, wondering if I'd done the right thing, or if I really was as foolish as my daughter said. I was in the garden when he returned, pulling weeds from the flower beds Fallon insists must look like something out of a magazine. The November air was crisp, and my arthritis made every bend and stretch ache. Still, I preferred the cold earth and open sky to the suffocating quiet and unspoken rules inside that house. "Excuse me, ma'am." I looked up and saw the same man from 3 days ago, but something about him was different. He still wore the same layered, worn clothing, but he stood taller now. His face wasn't quite as hollow, and there was a clear focus in his eyes that hadn't been there before. "You came back," I said, struggling to push myself to my feet and brushing dirt from my knees. "I wanted to thank you properly for the crackers," he replied, "and to return something." He held out his hand. Resting in his palm was a small wallet, expensive leather, the kind Fallon would carry. "I found this in your driveway after I left the other day," he said. "Must have fallen out of someone's purse." I took the wallet and recognized it instantly. Fallon's spare, the one she kept in her car for emergencies. Inside were several credit cards and at least $300 in cash. "Oh my goodness," I breathed. "My daughter must have dropped this. She would have been frantic looking for it." "I figured it was important," he said. "I thought about just leaving it in your mailbox, but with the cash and cards, it seemed better to hand it to you in person." I stared at him, stunned. Here was a man who had told me he hadn't eaten in 2 days, holding a wallet full of money, and his first instinct had been to bring it back. The contrast between his integrity and Fallon's assumptions about people like him made my chest tighten with shame. "Please," I said, "let me get you something. A proper meal at least, after what you've done." "That's kind of you, but I'm all right now." He paused, studying my face with that same searching intensity as before. "Can I ask you something?" I nodded. "The other day, when you gave me those crackers, why did you do it? After what your daughter said? After she made it clear you'd get in trouble for it?" The question caught me off guard. I didn't know how to explain that moment, the reflex that had made me reach into my pocket for the little I had. I suppose," I began slowly, "I suppose I know what it's like to be hungry." His expression softened, growing gentler and somehow sadder at once. "You know what it's like to be hungry," he said quietly, "living in a house like this?" I glanced back at the mansion, the manicured yard, the gleaming cars in the driveway, and suddenly understood how absurd my words must sound. "It's complicated," I said. "I imagine it is." He was silent for a moment, then reached into his pocket. "I have something for you, too." What he pulled out made my breath catch. A business card. But not the flimsy kind you get free in bulk. This one was heavy cardstock, embossed lettering, the kind that costs more per card than some people spend on lunch. I read the name and felt the world tilt beneath my feet. Heath Morrison, President and CEO, Morrison Foundation. "I don't understand," I whispered. The man in front of me reached up and slowly removed the knitted cap he'd been wearing. Underneath, his hair was shorter than it had looked before, neatly trimmed and graying at the temples. He then slipped off what I now realized was a wig, revealing carefully styled silver hair that practically shouted, "Wealthy professional." "My name is Heath Morrison," he said, his voice altered, no longer rough and tentative but cultured and confident. "I run a foundation that provides assistance to people in need, but more than that, I assess the character of people who have the means to help." I staggered backward and nearly tripped over the garden hose. "You were testing me?" "Not testing," he corrected gently. "Observing." He straightened to his full height, and I could see now he was probably in his early 60s, still strong and solid despite the loose clothing meant to disguise him. I've been researching this neighborhood for weeks, he continued, looking for people who have both the resources and the character to partner with our foundation. I expected to find entitled people who would slam the door in my face or call security. And instead, I asked, I found you. His eyes were kind but serious. A woman living in a $1 million house who gave a stranger her only meal, even after being told not to. A woman willing to risk punishment in order to show compassion. My head was spinning. But you said you hadn't eaten in 2 days, I managed. I lied about that part, he admitted. But everything else? The gratitude? The awareness of what you gave up? That was real. I looked down at the business card again, trying to make sense of any of this. I'd heard of the Morrison Foundation. I'd seen their work on the news. One of the largest charitable organizations in New England, with an annual budget in the millions. I still don't understand why you're telling me all this. Heath glanced back at the house, his expression darkening slightly. Because I also saw what happened after I left, he said. I heard how your daughter spoke to you, how she dismissed your kindness as stupidity. I saw her throw away your sandwich and eat it herself. Heat rushed to my cheeks. You heard that? The acoustics in this neighborhood are excellent, he replied dryly, and your daughter has a voice that carries. I wanted to defend Fallon, to say she was just trying to protect me, that she worried about my safety, but the words wouldn't come because we both knew they'd be a lie. She's not wrong about everything, I said instead. I don't have any resources of my own. I can't be a partner to a foundation. Heath smiled, and the change in his face was striking. Mrs. Grant, he said softly, you've already proven that resources aren't always measured in dollars. He reached into his jacket and pulled out an envelope, heavy, high-quality paper, the kind used for important documents. What I'm about to offer might sound impossible, he said, but I want you to hear me out. He held up the envelope. Inside is a job offer. The Morrison Foundation is looking for someone to oversee our community outreach program, someone who understands what it means to need help and what it costs to give it. I stared at the envelope as if it might explode in my hands. I'm 65 years old, I said faintly. I don't have any experience in nonprofit work. You have experience in compassion. You have experience in sacrifice. You have experience in recognizing human dignity, even when others can't see it. He held out the envelope. The position comes with a salary of $60,000 a year, full health benefits, and a housing allowance. $60,000. More money than I've controlled at one time since Thomas died. More money than Fallon lets me touch in an entire year. I can't, I whisper. Why not? I struggle to put words to the invisible cage built around me so slowly I hadn't noticed the bars until they were locked. Because I don't have anywhere else to live. Because I don't have a car. Because my daughter controls my finances and she would never... Mrs. Grant. His voice is gentle but firm. You're not your daughter's property. You're a grown woman with every right to make your own decisions about your life. I want to believe him, but 5 years of being told I'm incapable, incompetent, and dependent sits on my shoulders like a weight. She'll be furious, I say. Will she? He asks calmly. Or will she be afraid? The question stops me. Afraid of what? Of losing control, of actually being responsible for her own life instead of using yours as a safety net. His eyes are steady, knowing, and I realize he's seen this kind of situation before. Mrs. Grant, when was the last time you made a decision about your own life? I try to think, and come up empty. When to wake up, what to wear, what to eat, where to go, when to speak. Every part of my day has been dictated by someone else for so long that I've forgotten how it feels to choose. I need time to think, I say finally. Of course. He places the envelope in my hand. When our fingers touch, his grip is warm and steady. But while you're thinking, consider this, he adds. You showed kindness to a stranger when it cost you something. That isn't common. That isn't ordinary. That's the kind of character we build foundations on. He starts down the driveway, then turns back. Mrs. Grant, the offer expires in 1 week. Not because I don't want to give you time, but because opportunities like this don't wait forever. I watch him walk away, and this time there's no disguise in his stride. He moves with purpose and confidence, the walk of a man who owns companies and changes lives. At the street, he gets into a black sedan that I'm almost sure wasn't there moments ago. I stand in the garden clutching the envelope and the business card, feeling as if lightning just struck my quiet little world. Everything I thought I knew about my situation feels wrong. The homeless man was a millionaire. My foolish act of compassion was actually proof of character. And somewhere in this envelope is a key to a door I never even knew existed. The front door opens, and Fallon's voice cuts across the yard. "Mother, what are you doing out there? And who was that man you were talking to?" I quickly slip the envelope and card into my apron pocket, my heart pounding. "Just someone returning your wallet," I call back. "The spare one from your car." But as I walk toward the house, I can feel the weight of the envelope against my hip, like a secret heartbeat. And for the first time in 5 years, I wonder if there might be another way to live. I wait until Fallon leaves for her book club that evening before I dare open the envelope. My hands tremble as I break the heavy wax seal, and I have to sit on my narrow bed to steady myself. The job offer is more detailed than I imagined, typed on thick letterhead that feels important between my fingers. Community Outreach Coordinator, Morrison Foundation. Salary, $60,000 per year. Benefits, health insurance, dental, vision, and a retirement contribution plan. Housing allowance, $1,200 per month, $1,200 just for housing. Almost as much as my entire Social Security check, but it's the handwritten note attached to the offer that makes my breath catch. "Mrs. Grant, there's something else you need to know about why I approached you specifically. It has to do with your late husband, Thomas. If you're willing to take the job, I'll explain everything. You deserve to know the truth about the man you married and the legacy he left behind. Thomas." My heart races as I read the lines again. What could Heath Morrison possibly know about Thomas that I don't? We were married for 39 years. I thought I knew everything about the man who shared my bed, my dreams, my life. I fold the papers carefully and slide them back into the envelope, then tuck it beneath a stack of old photographs in my nightstand drawer, pictures of Thomas and me when we were young and broke and happy, photos of baby Fallon when she looked at me like I was her whole world. Sleep refuses to come that night. I lie in the dark, staring at the ceiling, wondering what secrets Thomas might have kept, what connection he could possibly have to a man like Heath Morrison. The next morning, Fallon is in an unusually good mood. She actually says please when she asks me to iron her blouse, and she doesn't complain about the coffee. It puts me on edge. "I have some exciting news," she announces over breakfast. "Marcus Henderson called last night." The name rings a bell, but I can't place it. "From the Henderson Group," she adds, as if that explains everything. "They're interested in having me consult on their new marketing campaign. It could be a very lucrative contract." "That's wonderful, dear," I say. "It is, isn't it?" She takes a dainty sip of coffee. "Of course, I'll need to look the part. Success breeds success and all that. I'm thinking of redecorating the living room, maybe upgrading some of the furniture." My stomach tightens. More spending, which means even less chance of ever seeing any of my own money. "Will that be expensive?" I ask carefully. "Investment, Mother, not expense. Investment." She waves her hand dismissively. "Besides, it's not like we have a choice," Fallon continues breezily. "You want me to succeed, don't you? You want our family to keep thriving?" Our family. As if I'm truly part of it, rather than the live-in help who happens to share her DNA. "Of course I want you to succeed," I say quietly. "Good, because I'm going to need you to be extra careful with the household budget for the next few months. No unnecessary purchases, no wasteful spending." She gives me a pointed look. "And absolutely no giving away food to strangers. We can't afford to be charitable right now." I nod and return to washing the dishes, though my mind is a whirlpool of fear and possibility. If Fallon is planning a redecorating spree, she'll tighten her grip on my finances even more. My $200 allowance, which is already just a tiny fraction of my own benefits, might disappear entirely. The envelope hidden in my nightstand suddenly feels like it's glowing, burning, calling to me. When Fallon leaves for her meeting with a potential client, the house grows quiet. I'm alone with my thoughts, with my doubts, with the part of me that's starting, just barely, to hope. I take out the envelope again and reread Heath Morrison's handwritten note. You deserve to know the truth about the man you married and the legacy he left behind. Legacy? Thomas left behind life insurance and our modest home, both now under Fallon's control. He left behind memories of kindness, laughter, and the steady love of a man who never once raised his voice at me. What else could there be? I'm still trying to make sense of it when the doorbell rings. Through the frosted glass, a familiar silhouette stands waiting. My heart leaps. When I open the door, Heath Morrison is there, this time not in worn layers and a knit cap, but in a tailored suit with his silver hair perfectly styled. He looks every bit the wealthy executive he truly is. The transformation is so complete it almost feels surreal. "Mrs. Grant," he says warmly, "I hope you don't mind me stopping by. I wanted to follow up on our conversation." "My daughter isn't home," I say automatically. "I know," he replies. "I waited for her to leave." His smile is gentle, knowing. I thought we could talk more openly without an audience. I hesitate, then step aside. He walks into the marble foyer and surveys the impeccably decorated space, not with admiration but with an analytical gaze, as though taking mental notes. "Beautiful home," he says politely. "Thank you." I don't explain that it isn't truly mine. I can't bring myself to admit that part. "Have you had a chance to look at the job offer?" "Yes," I say. My voice sounds too small. "But I have questions." "Of course. Let's sit." I lead him into the living room and choose the chairs instead of the couch. Too intimate, too comfortable. He settles into Thomas's old reading chair, the one Fallon insisted on bringing from our old house, and something tightens painfully in my chest. "You mentioned Thomas," I say. "My late husband. I don't understand what he could possibly have to do with your foundation." Heath leans forward, his expression turning intent. "Mrs. Grant, what did your husband tell you about his work?" "He was a maintenance supervisor at Hartwell Manufacturing. He worked there for 23 years before retiring. That's all he ever said." Heath nods slowly. "Thomas was a maintenance supervisor, but what he didn't tell you was that in 1997 he prevented a catastrophic industrial accident." My breath catches. "What?" "There was a chemical leak. Small at first. Thomas recognized the warning signs of an impending explosion. While others evacuated, he stayed behind to manually shut down the systems, and he contained the leak." I stare at him, stunned. Thomas never told me any of this, not a word. "He wouldn't have," Heath continues. "According to the incident report, he refused recognition. He simply did what needed to be done and went back to work the next day." "But how do you know all this?" Heath's expression softens. "Because I was the plant manager that day, Mrs. Grant. I was 28, fresh out of business school, and completely unprepared for a crisis of that magnitude. Your husband saved the plant, and possibly my life." The room seems to tilt. "You knew Thomas?" "I knew him," Heath says quietly. "Worked with him, and I owed him a debt I never had the chance to repay. Thomas Grant was the most decent man I ever met. He taught me more about leadership in one afternoon than 4 years at Harvard ever did." Tears sting my eyes. Why didn't he ever tell me? Because that's who he was. He didn't help people for applause. He helped because it was right. He reaches into his jacket and pulls out a folded paper. "This is a copy of the commendation letter the company wrote. Thomas refused to accept it publicly, so it was filed away. I kept my copy." With shaking hands, I unfold it. The letter describes heroism, quick thinking, bravery, the prevention of what could have been catastrophic loss of life, a recommendation for the company's highest civilian honor. "He never got this," I whisper. "He refused," Heath repeats gently. "Said he was just doing his job." Tears fall freely now. He brought me coffee in bed every morning, I murmur. I never knew. When I learned of his passing, I tried to find you, Heath says. I wanted to tell you what he meant to me, what he meant to the world. But your daughter had moved you here, and every contact I had was outdated. So, you tested me instead? I ask. No, he says softly. I observed you, and what I saw was Thomas Grant's wife showing the same quiet courage, the same instinctive compassion that he showed all those years ago. Besides, it's not like we have a choice, she says. You do want me to succeed, don't you? You want our family to keep thriving? Our family. As if I'm truly part of it, and not just the live-in help who happens to be related by blood. Of course I want you to succeed, I answer. Good, because I'm going to need you to be extra careful with the household budget for the next few months. No unnecessary purchases, no wasteful spending. She levels a sharp look at me. And absolutely no giving food away to strangers. We cannot afford to be charitable right now. I nod and keep washing the dishes, but my mind is racing. If Fallon is planning to pour more money into redecorating, she'll tighten her grip on my finances even more. That $200 allowance might disappear entirely. The envelope hidden in my nightstand feels, in my mind, like it's glowing through the wood. After Fallon leaves for her meeting with the potential client, I'm alone in the house with nothing but my thoughts and my fears. I take out the envelope again and read Heath Morrison's note for what must be the 12th time. You deserve to know the truth about the man you married and the legacy he left behind. What legacy? Thomas left life insurance and our small house, both of which Fallon now controls. He left memories of a gentle man who worked hard, loved deeply, and never intentionally hurt anyone. What else could there be? I'm still turning this over in my mind when the doorbell rings. Through the frosted glass, I recognize the outline and feel my heart speed up. Heath Morrison stands on the porch, but this time he's in an expensive suit, his silver hair perfectly styled. He looks exactly like what he is, a wealthy, powerful businessman. To follow up on our conversation yesterday. My daughter isn't home, I say. I know, I waited for her to leave. His smile is kind, but there's an understanding in it. I thought we might talk more freely without an audience. I hesitate, then step aside to let him in. He looks around the marble foyer, taking in the expensive decor. He doesn't look impressed, more like he's taking inventory. Beautiful home, he says neutrally. Thank you. I don't add that it doesn't feel like mine. I don't have the courage to explain that to a man who until recently I thought was living on the streets. Have you had a chance to review the job offer? Yes, I say. My voice comes out smaller than I'd like. But I have questions. Of course. He gestures toward the living room. Shall we sit? I lead him there and choose the chairs instead of the couch. It feels less intimate, less like I'm overstepping in my own daughter's house. He settles into Thomas's old reading chair, the one Fallon moved here from our original home, and the sight of another man in it makes my chest ache. You mentioned Thomas, I begin. My late husband. I don't understand what he could possibly have to do with your foundation. Heath leans forward, his expression turning serious. Mrs. Grant, what did your husband tell you about his work? He was a maintenance supervisor at Hartwell Manufacturing, I reply. He worked there for 23 years before he retired. That's all. I frown, sensing now there's more under the surface of his question. What else would there be? It wasn't glamorous, but it was steady. It paid the bills. It put Fallon through college. Heath nods slowly. Thomas was indeed a maintenance supervisor, he says. But what he didn't tell you was that in 1997, he prevented what could have been a catastrophic industrial accident. My heart stutters. What? There was a chemical leak in one of the processing plants, he explains. It started small, but your husband recognized the signs of an impending major explosion. Instead of evacuating, he stayed behind to manually shut down systems and contain the leak. I stare at him, my mind struggling to absorb this. Thomas never said a word about anything like that. He wouldn't have, Heath continues. According to the incident report, he refused all publicity, any recognition. He did what he had to do, and went back to work the next day like nothing happened. But how do you know all this? I ask. Heath's expression softens, becoming more personal. Because I was the plant manager that day, Mrs. Grant. I was 28, fresh out of business school, completely unprepared for a crisis like that. Your husband didn't just save the plant, he saved my career, my future, possibly my life. The room seems to tilt. You knew Thomas, I whisper. I knew him, he says quietly. I worked with him, and I owed him a debt I never truly repaid. Emotion thickens his voice. Thomas Grant was the most decent man I've ever met. He taught me more about leadership and character in one afternoon than 4 years at Harvard Business School ever did. I feel tears gathering in my eyes. Why didn't he ever tell me? Because that's who he was, Heath replies. He didn't do the right thing for praise or reward. He did it because it was right. He reaches into his jacket and pulls out a folded sheet of paper. This is a copy of the commendation letter the company wrote. Thomas refused to accept it publicly, so they filed it away. I kept a copy. My hands tremble as I unfold it. The Hartwell Manufacturing letterhead is crisp and official. The letter describes Thomas's courage and quick thinking in detail, how he prevented possible loss of life and millions in damages, how they recommended him for the company's highest civilian honor. He never got this, I say softly. He refused it, Heath confirms, said he was just doing his job. His voice gentles even more. Mrs. Grant, I've spent the last 26 years building a foundation dedicated to helping people in need. Every dollar I've earned, every life we've touched, every family we've helped, it all traces back to that day, to what your husband showed me about real character. Tears spill over now as I think of the quiet man who used to bring me coffee in bed, who fixed leaky faucets and danced with me in the kitchen, and who, it seems, once risked his life without ever saying a word. When I heard he'd passed away, I tried to find you, Heath continues. I wanted to tell you what he meant to me, and to the world. But your daughter had already moved you here, and every contact detail I had was out of date. So you tested me instead, I say quietly. I observed you, he corrects gently. And what I saw was Thomas Grant's wife showing the same quiet courage, the same instinctive compassion he showed me all those years ago. He leans forward, his gaze steady and intense. Mrs. Grant, I'm not offering you this job out of pity or because I feel obligated. I'm offering it because you are exactly the kind of person our foundation needs, the same kind of person your husband was. I carefully fold the letter again, though my hands are still shaking. I still don't understand why he never told me, I whisper. Because heroes rarely think of themselves as heroes, Heath says. They just see a problem and do what they can. He pauses. But there's something else you should know, something that may explain why this job offer matters so much. What is it? Thomas tried to contact me about 6 months before he died, Heath says quietly. He left several messages at my office, said he needed to talk about something important regarding his family's future, but I was traveling almost constantly that quarter. By the time I got the messages and called back, he was already gone. My heart twists painfully. He was trying to reach you, I say. I believe he was, Heath replies. I think he was worried about what would happen to you after he was gone. I think he wanted to make sure you were taken care of, but he ran out of time. The realization hits me like a blow. Thomas had seen what might happen to me. He'd tried to protect me, to secure my future, and I never knew. So this job offer, I begin, is what Thomas would have wanted for you, Heath finishes. Independence, dignity, a chance to use your gifts to help others. His voice is steady now. Your husband saved my life, Mrs. Grant. Let me honor that by giving you the opportunity to save your own. I sit there holding the commendation letter, feeling the weight of 26 years of unspoken gratitude and of a love that reached beyond death to try and protect me. Thomas had been a hero, and I'd never known. He had tried to secure my future, and I'd never known that either. But now I do. And Heath is offering me a path to the life Thomas wanted for me. My husband's secret might finally set me free, if I can find the courage to let it. I spend 3 sleepless nights thinking about Heath's offer, about Thomas's hidden heroism, about the life I might have if I dared to take the risk. Every morning, I wake in my narrow bed in the old servants' quarters. Every morning, I tie on the same worn apron and shuffle downstairs to begin another day of unseen labor. But inside, something is different. The knowledge that Thomas tried to protect my future, that he believed I was worth safeguarding, glows like a small flame in my chest. It's been so long since anyone treated me as someone capable of more than cooking, cleaning, and keeping quiet that I'd nearly forgotten what it felt like to matter. On Thursday evening, Fallon announces that Marcus Henderson has officially hired her for the campaign, and she celebrates by ordering overpriced sushi from downtown. She eats at the kitchen island while I clean around her, describing her grand plans for the living room. "I'm thinking of replacing all the furniture," she says, waving a slice of tuna in the air. "Something more modern, more sophisticated. The current stuff is too dated, too much like something an old person would choose." I pause mid-wipe on the spotless counters. The dated furniture she's talking about includes Thomas's reading chair, the coffee table we bought for our first apartment, the bookshelf where I keep my last few treasures. "What would happen to the old furniture?" I ask carefully. "Donate it, I guess. Or have it hauled away. I haven't decided." She shrugs, as if we're talking about junk and not the physical remnants of my life with my husband. The important thing is creating the right image for potential clients. Something splits inside my chest, but this time it isn't the dull fracture of defeat. It feels like a shell cracking, making room for something new to emerge. "Fallon," I say, setting down my cleaning cloth, "we need to talk." She glances up from her phone, eyebrows arching. "About what?" "About my life, about my future." She lets out a short laugh, the kind you give a child who says they want to become a unicorn. "Mother, we've talked about this. Your future is secure. You have everything you need here." "Do I?" I ask quietly. "Do I really?" Something in my voice must reach her because she sets down her chopsticks and studies me more closely. "What's gotten into you?" "I've been offered a job." The words hang in the air between us like a thrown gauntlet. Her expression cycles from confusion to disbelief before landing on something that looks very much like fear. "A job? What kind of job? Where?" "At the Morrison Foundation," I say, "community outreach coordinator, $60,000 a year, full benefits, housing allowance." I straighten my back as I speak, feeling my voice grow steadier with each word. Fallon stares at me, then starts to laugh. Not her polished client laugh, but something sharp and strained. "The Morrison Foundation? Mother, do you have any idea how absurd that sounds? They're one of the most prestigious charitable organizations in New England. They don't hire 65-year-old women with no experience." "They hired me," I reply. "No, they didn't," she snaps. "Someone is playing a joke on you or trying to scam you or—" She cuts herself off, her expression changing. "Wait, this is about that homeless man, isn't it? The one you gave food to." I meet her gaze head on. "Yes." "I knew it," she says. "I knew he was trouble." She jumps up and begins pacing. "He's clearly running some kind of con, targeting vulnerable elderly people. Mother, you cannot be this gullible." "Heath Morrison is not running a con, Fallon," I say, my voice calm. "He's the president and CEO of the foundation, and he knew your father." That stops her. "What?" "26 years ago, Thomas saved his life," I say. "He's been trying to find me since your father died, to repay a debt he feels he owes our family." I can see her mind scrambling, trying to punch holes in the story, searching for a way to dismiss everything I've just said. "Even if that's true, which I seriously doubt, you can't possibly be considering this," she says. "You have no experience in nonprofit work. You'd be overwhelmed, lost, probably fired in a month." "Maybe," I say, "but that would be my decision to make." "Your decision?" Her voice spikes. Mother, you haven't made a competent decision about anything in 5 years. Your judgment is clearly compromised. This proves it. The words are meant to knock me back into place, to compress me again into something small and manageable, but instead of shrinking, I feel that small flame inside me blaze higher. You're right, I say quietly. I haven't made choices in 5 years, I say quietly, because you haven't let me. I haven't let you? Fallon snaps. I've been protecting you from making mistakes that would hurt both of us. No, Fallon. I meet her eyes. You've been controlling me because it's convenient. Because having me here means you don't have to pay for a housekeeper or a cook or a handyman. Because you can live off my Social Security and Thomas's life insurance and toss me an allowance like I'm a child. Color rushes into her face. How dare you? After everything I've done for you, everything I've sacrificed? What have you sacrificed? The question comes out sharper than I intended, but I don't back down. What exactly have you given up by having me here? She falters, clearly not prepared to be challenged. I've given up my privacy, my independence, she insists. I've taken on the responsibility of caring for you when I should be focusing on my career. Caring for me? I ask softly. When have you cared for me, Fallon? She blinks. When have you asked how I'm feeling? What I need? What I want? When have you treated me like your mother instead of your employee? That's not fair, she mutters. Isn't it? I move closer, and for once I'm the one who doesn't step back. Tell me this, I say. When was the last time you asked me about my day? When was the last time you thanked me for anything I do around here? When was the last time you said you loved me? Without immediately asking for something? She opens her mouth, then shuts it again. The silence stretches between us, heavy with 5 years of unspoken resentment and ignored hurt. This is exactly what I mean, she says finally. You're being emotional, irrational. You're proving you need guidance, not independence. No, Fallon, I reply. I'm proving I still have a voice, even after you've tried so hard to quiet it. I turn toward the stairs, but her next words freeze me in place. If you take this job, don't expect to come crawling back here when it doesn't work out. I slowly face her again. Beneath the anger, I can see it clearly now. Panic. Real fear. Is that a threat? I ask. It's reality, she says. If you walk out on this family, on everything I've done for you, you're on your own, completely. For a moment, the old terror rises up, the fear of being alone, homeless, helpless. But then I remember Heath's steady eyes, Thomas's hidden heroism, the job offer that represents not just a paycheck, but the return of my dignity. You're right, I say calmly. I would be on my own. For the first time in 5 years, I'd be responsible for my own decisions, my own mistakes, my own successes. You'll fail, she says flatly. Maybe, I admit, but at least I'll fail as myself, not as the shadow of who you want me to be. I turn back toward the stairs. This time she doesn't try to stop me with insults. Instead, she follows, her heels hammering against the marble like angry punctuation marks. Mother, wait. You're upset. You're not thinking clearly. Let's talk about this tomorrow when you've calmed down. I rest my hand on the banister. I've been calm for 5 years, Fallon, I say softly. I've been quiet and grateful and accommodating. I've made myself so small that some days I forget I exist at all. That's not true, she says automatically. Isn't it? I look back at her. When was the last time I laughed out loud? When was the last time I sang in the shower, or danced in the kitchen, or did anything that made noise, anything that took up space and reminded the world that Rosalind Grant is still here? She says nothing, and in that silence, I find all the answers we've both been avoiding. I'm taking the job, Fallon. You can't, she says. I can, I reply. And I will. I'll be gone by the weekend. Where will you go? She demands. You don't have a car. You don't have money. Mr. Morrison is providing temporary housing while I find a permanent place, I tell her. And I do have money. My Social Security, Thomas's life insurance, the proceeds from the sale of our house, all of it legally mine, all of it currently controlled by you." Her face drains of color. "You can't just take that money. It's invested. It's tied up in your mortgage," I finish for her. "In your lifestyle. In your comfort." I nod. "I know. But it's still mine, Fallon. And I'm taking it back." For the first time since this argument started, she looks truly frightened. "Please don't do this," she whispers. "Please don't leave me." A week ago, those words would have shattered me. I would have rushed to her side, promising I'd never abandon her, never leave her alone. But now I hear the truth under her plea. "Please don't stop funding my life." "I'm not leaving you, Fallon," I say quietly. "I'm finally choosing me." I climb the stairs to my small room, feeling lighter with every step. Behind me, I can hear her begin to cry. But the sound is jagged, frustrated, not remorseful. In my room, I take out the envelope with Heath's offer and read it one more time. Tomorrow, I will call him and say yes. Tomorrow, I'll start the process of reclaiming my life. For the first time in 5 years, the decision is mine, and it feels like coming back to life. I realized that 6 months ago, I could barely help myself. I finish. Heath nods thoughtfully, as if that lands exactly where he expected it to. Before he can respond, Maria comes over to take our order, greeting us both by name. I ask for tomato soup and half a turkey sandwich. Heath orders his usual salad and black coffee. Once she leaves, he leans his elbows lightly on the table. "Rosalind, do you remember the night you signed your employment contract?" he asks. I smile faintly. How could I forget? I was terrified. "You were shaking so hard I thought you might faint," he says with a soft chuckle. "But you still signed. That's what mattered." It felt like jumping off a cliff, I admit. I had no idea if I'd land on my feet or not. "And now?" he asks. "How does it feel now?" I look out the window for a moment. People pass by carrying briefcases, backpacks, paper cups of coffee, tiny symbols of ordinary independence. "Now it feels like I finally found the ground," I say slowly. "It's not always easy, but it's solid. And it's mine." Heath smiles, a proud, almost fatherly look in his eyes. "That's good to hear," he says, "because what I want to talk to you about has everything to do with that." My heartbeat stutters just a little. "Am I doing all right?" I ask. Old habits die hard. Part of me still braces for criticism. "Rosalind," he says, his tone firm but kind, "you're doing more than all right. The shelters and partner organizations you work with keep sending us feedback about you. I've had people tell me they feel truly seen when you walk into a room." I feel my cheeks warm. "I just listen." Most of the time, people already know what they need. They just need someone to stand beside them while they say it out loud. "That," he says, "is exactly why I wanted to meet today." Maria returns with our food, and we pause while she sets everything down. She smiles at me, and I make a mental note to leave her a generous tip. When she walks away, Heath clears his throat. "We're expanding the Foundation's outreach programs," he explains. "The board has approved new funding for community initiatives, support groups, education workshops, that sort of thing." "That's wonderful," I say sincerely. "It is," he agrees. "But we need someone to lead that effort. Someone who understands what it's like to be on the receiving end of help as well as the giving end. Someone the staff already trusts." It takes me a moment to realize he's looking directly at me. "You mean—" I start. "I mean, we'd like to promote you," he says. "Director of Community Engagement. It would be a step up in responsibility, supervising a small team, developing programs, representing the foundation at certain events." My mind spins. "Director?" I repeat, the word strange and unfamiliar in my mouth. "There would, of course, be a raise," he adds lightly, $75,000 a year, with an updated benefits package. "We'd also increase your housing allowance so you don't have to worry about rent if prices go up." I stare at him, then let out a breath I didn't know I was holding. "I'm not sure I'm qualified," I say honestly. "I don't have a degree in social work or public administration. I still have to ask Maria how to pronounce some of the fancy items on the menu. Heath laughs softly. Rosalind, I have shelves of people with degrees lining up to work here. I can train skills. I can't train integrity, empathy, or lived experience. He looks at me steadily. Do you remember what I told you in your garden, the day I handed you that envelope? You said I had the kind of character you build foundations on, I say a little shyly. And I was right, he replies. Your husband showed me what leadership looks like in a crisis. You've shown me what leadership looks like in the quiet, daily work of lifting people up. I look down at my hands, at the faint lines and soft wrinkles that once made me feel old and useless. Now they look like proof of everything I've survived. What would you need from me? I ask. I'd need you to keep doing what you already do, he says. Listening, advocating, believing in people when they don't yet believe in themselves. Only now, I'd like you to design the programs that make that possible for others too. Tears sting the back of my eyes, but they're not like the tears I used to cry in Fallon's house. These feel lighter, stronger. Yes, I say, before fear can climb back into my throat. If you believe I can do it, then yes, I'd be honored. Heath's smile widens and he lifts his coffee cup in a small toast. To Thomas, he says. I pick up my water glass and tap it gently against his. To Thomas, I echo, and to the life he wanted for me. As we eat and talk about next steps, training, and transition plans, I realize something quietly miraculous. I am not afraid. The woman who once counted crusts of bread to stretch a single sandwich through the day is now sitting in a cafe, discussing a promotion, a future, and programs that will help others step out of their own cages. 6 months ago, I woke up in a house that wasn't really mine, living a life that didn't feel like it belonged to me. Now, I wake up to an alarm I chose, in a home I cherish, to a day where people are waiting not for my servitude, but for my help. And for the first time in a very long time, I know this. My story is not over. I am not a ghost. I am here. Now I'm in a position to help other people change their lives. Heath nods, his expression thoughtful. That's actually connected to what I wanted to talk to you about. Maria comes to take our orders, and I notice Heath waits until she's gone before he continues. Whatever this is, it's serious. Rosalind, I've been watching your work these past 6 months, he says. The way you connect with clients, the way you handle crises, the way you've grown into this role. He leans forward slightly. I have a proposition for you. My pulse quickens. What kind of proposition? The Foundation Board has approved funding for a new program. We want to open a safe house specifically for women over 50 who've been pushed out of their homes through family exploitation or abuse. He lets the words land. We need someone to run it, someone who understands what it's like to be in that position. I stare at him, trying to process what he's saying. You want me to run a safe house? I want you to create something that should have existed for you 6 months ago, he says gently. A place where women like Sarah's mother, like you, can find more than a temporary bed, a place that offers a real path to independence. The scope of what he's describing takes my breath away. Heath, I don't have experience running something like that. I've only been doing this job for 6 months. And in those 6 months, you've shown more insight and compassion than people who've been in this field for decades, he counters. You understand these women because you are these women. His voice grows more passionate. Rosalind, there are thousands of women your age trapped in situations just like the one you left. They need someone who can look them straight in the eye and say, I've been where you are, and there is another way. I think of Sarah, of the fear in her eyes that mirrored my own from not so long ago. I think of all the women like her, like me, who've been told for years that they are powerless until they started to believe it. What would this involve, exactly? I ask. Hiring and training staff, setting up intake procedures, creating support programs, he explains. We're envisioning a facility that can house up to 20 women at a time with the goal of helping each one transition to independent living within 6 to 12 months. And you really think I could do this? Heath smiles, warm and sure. I think Thomas Grant's wife can do anything she decides to do. The mention of Thomas settles over me like a warm blanket. I still wake up some nights forgetting he's gone, still reaching for his hand in the dark, but more and more I feel him beneath my feet instead of beside me, less an absence and more a foundation, the solid ground of love and respect everything else is built on. There would be a substantial salary increase, Heath continues, program director level, around $85,000 a year, plus full administrative support and a dedicated budget. $85,000. More money than I ever imagined earning. More than I'll ever need for my simple life, but we both know it isn't about the money. When would this start? The board approved the funding yesterday, he says. If you say yes, we can begin planning right away and open the facility within 6 months. I look out the window at people hurrying past, some confident, some tired, all of them carrying invisible stories. I imagine the unseen women among them, the ones who've made themselves so small they've nearly disappeared, the ones who think their worth begins and ends with what they do for others. I'd like to name it after Thomas, I say suddenly. Heath's eyes light up. The Thomas Grant Center for New Beginnings, I add. Something like that. Tears prick my eyes, but they're not from sadness. They're tears of gratitude, of possibility, of a future I never even knew I was allowed to dream about. He would have loved this, wouldn't he? I whisper, knowing that what he did all those years ago led to something that could help so many people. He would have been proud of you, Heath says quietly. Just like I am. I wipe my eyes and draw in a steadying breath. 6 months ago, I was a ghost drifting through someone else's home, unseen and unheard. Now I'm being asked to build something that could change lives. Yes, I say, my voice stronger than I've ever heard it. Yes, I'll do it. Heath reaches across the table and squeezes my hand. Welcome to the next chapter of your life, Director Grant. Director Grant. I turn the title over in my mind, feeling its weight and its promise. Rosalind Grant, Program Director, creator of New Beginnings, a woman who chose herself and discovered she was worth choosing. That evening, I curl up in my favorite chair with a cup of tea and Thomas's old photo album. I flip through snapshots of our life. In one, we're young and broke and glowing with happiness, grinning in front of our first apartment. In another, we're older, grayer, but still holding hands like teenagers. My fingers trace his face in the last photo we took together, just months before he died. He's wearing his favorite sweater, the one I gave away because it hurt too much to see it hanging there without him. Now I wish I'd kept it. But I understand why I couldn't. Back then, I wasn't ready to be the keeper of memories. I was too busy trying to endure. I did it, Thomas, I whisper to the photograph. I found my way back to myself. I close the album and look around my apartment. My sanctuary, my proof that starting over isn't reserved for the young. Tomorrow, I'll start planning the Thomas Grant Center. I'll begin creating a place where other women can learn what I finally have, that dignity can't be taken from you unless you hand it over, that it is never too late to choose yourself, that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is simply refuse to disappear. My phone buzzes with a text. For a moment, my heart jumps. Fallon crosses my mind. We haven't spoken since the day I left. From mutual acquaintances, I've heard she had to sell the house when she couldn't afford the mortgage without my income. She moved into a small condo and took a full-time job with benefits, things she'd always been capable of but never needed to do while she was living off my labor and my money. But the message isn't from Fallon. It's from Sarah, the young mother I helped yesterday. Thank you for everything. My kids and I are safe tonight because of you. You saved our lives. I set the phone down and smile. This is what it feels like to matter, to have impact, to use your voice for something bigger than asking permission to exist. I finally understand what it means to live instead of just survive. And tomorrow, I'll help other women learn the same lesson. The weight of forced gratitude has fallen away, replaced by the lightness of a purpose I chose for myself. I am 65 years old and my life is just beginning. Now I'm curious about you, the one listening to my story. What would you do if you were in my place? Have you ever gone through something similar? Leave a comment below and share your experience. And before you go, I'm leaving 2 more stories on the final screen, favorites on this channel that I know will surprise you. Thank you for staying with me until the end.